Good morning. Thank you all for joining us today. Before we begin our National Disability Employment Awareness Month Fireside Chat series, I just wanted to do a few housekeeping items. Please know that this webinar is being recorded. We will have time for questions and answers from our speaker at the end of the session. We will also have live captioning available. To turn on your captions, look for the bottom bar on your Zoom window and look for the CC button. Click closed captions to start viewing the closed captioning. Our question and answer session will also have live transcription. To view live captions, click live transcription and then select show subtitle. You can also click view full transcription to view the transcript of the slide panel of our meeting. If you have a question, please put them in the Q&A section and we will get them to the speakers, or join us after the chat to ask your questions live. So without further ado, we are excited to have today's Fireside Chat with Kareem McNeal. Great morning, Kareem. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Good morning.
Doing good. Well, thank you so much for being here with us today. Appreciate you being part of our Fireside Chat series for National Disability Employment Awareness Month. So to get us started, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, originally I'm from Tuskegee, Alabama. Went to high school in Montgomery, Alabama, at Alabama Christian Academy. Came to Alabama to play football, and my career ended early due to an accident, and which left me paralyzed from the waist down. And from there, I've gotten married. Well, before the accident, I had actually gotten married, and then after the accident, finished my degrees and started working in Tuscaloosa, and started working at Shelton, and worked there for 22 years, and just started at the university in the department that I graduated from. Very excited about that, really excited. And it's just been a really big blessing for me to be here and to be a part of the things that I've been a part of.
Great, thank you. As you know, October is National Disability Employment Awareness Month, and these Fireside Chats are highlighting Alabamians with disabilities and their journey to employment. Mm-hmm. In that context, can you share with us how you acquired your disability and what your first and subsequent experiences were with employment after your disability, and how you got to your career here? I know you shared a little bit, but tell us a little bit more of the story.
Sure. Going into my senior year, I went home 4th of July weekend in '95, and was hanging out with my brother-in-law and a friend. Went to go play some pool, and the places that we wanted to go play at were closed. So we were headed back home. And so we were on a dark country road. And so where we went to pass a vehicle. The car wouldn't let us pass. And my brother-in-law hurried up to pass this vehicle. And as he's getting over, another vehicle was coming at us, and they were speeding as well. And we lost control of the car, went back across the road and hit a ravine, and was thrown out of the vehicle. And there were 3 of us in the vehicle. I was the only one wearing a seatbelt, and we were all 3 thrown out of the vehicle. And I received the worst injuries of everyone. And in that process, they found us 80 feet away from the vehicle. My brother-in-law and myself were thrown in a bed of rattlesnakes in that process, and they had to kill the snakes before they can get to us. We know this because a friend of my brother-in-law was one of the first to show up, and he actually brought my brother-in-law one of the rattles that from the snakes he killed. And so anyway, I broke my back coming out of the vehicle and was left paralyzed from the waist down. I had a partially collapsed lung in the process, a bruised lung, just in pretty bad shape. And so spent about a week in ICU, had to do surgery to repair my back, put rods in my back. And from there, I spent a month in Caraway Hospital. And then I spent about a month at Spain Rehab. And from there, after I got out of the hospital, I have to tell this funny story about being in the hospital and then going to Spain. So while in the hospital, the doctors and nurses and therapists and stuff kept talking about when I was ready and able to go, I was going to Spain. And that's all they kept saying, I was going to Spain. And so in my mind, I'm thinking, why am I going to Spain? And so they kept saying that. I'm thinking, how's my mom going to come see me in Spain? Medicine not that good in America that they can't help me here, in America is what I was thinking. And so finally, as we got a little bit closer to time, so I said, how long is it going to take me to get to Spain? And they said, oh, it's just right down the street, about 5 minutes. It's 5 minutes from here. And boy, was I relieved to find out it was just right down the street. So Spain Rehab, which was associated with UAB. So I was happy about that. So after I get out of Spain Rehab, I go back to the university. I finish up my undergraduate degree, May of '96. And then I started working on my master's in health promotion is what it was when I started out. And in the process, this story kind of coincides with another question you asked me. And this is probably one of the most meaningful things that happened to me after I had my accident. But I worked at Rise when I started grad school. I worked there for 2 years. Coach Stallings asked me to work there because he felt like it would do me some good. It would be really good for me. And really, I didn't know a whole lot about Rise, other than I knew that it was a place for children with disabilities. And so when I got there, I learned so much from the kids that it absolutely changed my perspective on things. These kids were either born with a disability, a few of them had something happen to them afterwards, but most of them were born with some type of disability, and that's all they knew as far as life was concerned. So at Rise, these kids learned how to be integrated into a regular classroom with students that didn't have disabilities. And so I had the privilege and honor to work with these kids every day. And for me, it was just such a stress relief and such a break, because I got to hold the kids and I got to play with them and take them to class and give tours of the facility and take people around so they can see what these kids were learning. And it made such a big impact on me. And it was such a positive thing, because these kids only knew life the way they were born. And for me, I had to learn, okay, these are things that I took for granted. So how do I learn how to live life in the situation that I'm in now? And so, they taught me a lot about life and adjusting. So once I got through with grad school, I actually, I taught a year as a graduate assistant in my program. And that's where I decided that I wanted to teach. And teaching was not on my radar. I had other plans, but it kind of fell into it. I fell in love with it as a graduate assistant. I tell my students and tell people I was terrible my first year, because they don't really teach you how to teach starting out. And so I just kind of trial by error and absolutely fell in love with it. And from there, after I graduated, I literally was left in the position of, what does a guy in a wheelchair do to make a living? And so one of the things that I thought about was, during my time at Rise, I met a lady named Dr. Milady Murphy. She was the director of the Wellness Center at Shelton State Community College. And I thought, well, this is kind of sort of in my field. I taught health, and I know they offer health there, and so I thought that maybe she'd have a position for me to teach out there. So I applied for a job out there. I went and talked to her first and asked her if she had a position to teach out there, and she said, "Well, actually, no, I don't. Um, right now, they're all full. But what do you think about teaching weight training?" And in my mind, I thought, how the hell am I going to teach somebody how to lift weights from a wheelchair? But but I didn't say that out loud because I really wanted the job. And so I said, sure, I'll do it. And that was kind of my attitude about it. And so she said, okay, we'll get you in the door. So my first semester teaching was August of '99. It's my first year teaching weight training. And so I had to figure out how a guy in a wheelchair is going to teach able-bodied students how to lift weights and how to do it correctly. And so that was the challenge for me. And so what I did was I figured out that the majority of the things that we do in the weight room are definitely associated with life. So I tied everything that we did in the weight room with everything that we did in everyday life. And so I communicated that very well. I learned how to do that, and it translated really well to the students. And I learned how to, put the workouts and stuff together the way it needed to be. And it was just a lot of fun. And one of the things I did early on was we did a lot of football drills I'm from my days of playing ball. So did that early on, and then incorporated the weights and a variety of things. And it just took off from there. And then from there, my responsibilities grew. It took me about a year, maybe 2 years to become full-time. And I've been teaching at Shelton for 22 years. And once the opportunity came available at the university, I jumped on it, and it was just a fantastic opportunity.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. I know you mentioned about, an important time during your career at Rise, and I think that's a great place to work, and I am absolutely sure you motivated a lot of people there as well.
Right.
So tell me, is there another event or a significant time or something that happened in your life after you had the disability that you could share with us?
I think maybe a couple of things that happened. I think were unique and motivating to me. One of which has to do with Rise in the sense of, I guess, I forget exactly how long ago, but one of the babies that I took care of at Rise went on to go to school at Shelton and graduated and helps with the basketball team out there, Allison Gabriel. I love Allison Gabriel, and she's one of my favorite people in the world. And getting to see her every day or many times during the week while I was at Shelton was always fun and great. And that just reminded me of great times, as well as running into some of my able-bodied students that were at Rise that actually took care of me when I was in the hospital. So that was pretty neat, and reminds me, you know what, time does not wait for anybody. I'm getting old. so I'd say those were pretty significant. As well as one other thing is I get reminded all the time from my students that come back and see me how much they enjoy my class and how much of an inspiration I was to them. And that to me is a pretty big deal. And then sometimes I'll get a story from a student that will thank me for the time I gave them to help them, or even giving them a chance when they were struggling and had trouble with class, and giving them a time to make something up because they had serious life issues that were going on, that it in the end, it helped them to graduate. Because I had a couple of students that were on the verge of not being able to graduate because of life circumstances but because I hung in there with them and encouraged them and gave them an opportunity to finish my class, they were able to grab, and they thanked me for that. And that's a pretty big deal, because that makes a big impact on people, because them having a degree helps them move along in life, whether it's to help them to get a job, it helps to further their lives educationally, and accomplish things that perhaps not many in their families had the opportunity to do so.
Thank you. So, can you give our viewers some advice on looking for or seeking employment as an individual with a disability?
Sure. For me, my focus was I had to have a job, and not what does a guy in a wheelchair do to get a job. And so my focus was I wanted to get a job and to stay positive about it. And in my situation, where when my boss asked me that time, before she was my boss, what do you think about teaching weight training? Well, I said, yes, I'll do it, because I wanted the job. Now, I don't necessarily recommend, that for everybody if you're not familiar with the field. But the challenge was for, how does a guy in a wheelchair teach somebody how to do something? And I was very familiar with the weight room and whatnot. But the key was staying positive and looking for those open doors at any opportunity that makes itself available. I think that's the biggest thing for me, is just staying positive, regardless of what it looked like for me. And I think for me, I was fortunate enough to have a person like Dr. Milady Murphy that didn't look at the wheelchair as a limitation for me. And that was a real blessing in that respect. And I think for anybody else that's looking for a position, is to be confident in themselves, and that they can do anything they set their minds to. And that's the biggest thing, is just be confident where you're at, and then the doors are open from there.
Very true. So, we've all had bad days,
Mhm.
and when you've had a bad day,
Yeah.
where do you find your motivation? And in the same sense, do you have a personal motto that you go by? And when would you apply that?
Well, I think on the days days that are tough and challenging, I think the thing that really motivates me the most, if I can find something to smile about, whether it's my kids, or whether it's taking focus off of myself in the sense of whatever the issue is. And generally, when I go to work, I always put a smile on my face, because it's hard for somebody else to have a sad face when somebody's smiling at you. So if I can get a smile back, it only motivates me. And so that's what I try to do, is to get the focus off of myself a little bit, make somebody else smile, be positive, and I think that that really does it for me. I think, and just getting the focus off of the problem. And one of the interesting things is I teach stress management, and one of the things I describe to my students is, typically when you're having a hard time, um, it always feels like the problem is right in your face, and that's all you can see. But you ever if you can put yourself in a position where you can get the problem at a distance for a little bit, then it helps being able to figure out solutions. And many times it gives you the idea and gives you hope that, I can find a solution if I can push it back far enough so I can see. So it's not, I'm not looking at the problem per se, but just at the opportunity to solve the problem. And for me, if I can get somebody else to smile, I'm really good. And I don't know if I have a personal motto per se. It's just I just love to smile and laugh, and see other people smile and laugh.
So, Kareem, would there be any other motivational stories or events that happened in your life that you would like to share with us?
Sure. I got one. A year after my accident, I've been doing therapy and stuff, and for a long time, working on walking and straight leg braces and everything. And one of the coaches came to me one day and asked me if I'd come walk for the team. And it happened to be the week we played Auburn in 1996. Okay, and people that remember that game, it was a incredible game, incredible finish, and there was a really great story behind that whole game. And so that week, it was going to be a surprise for Coach Stallings and some of my former teammates and guys that were on the team, for me to walk into the meeting. Coach Stallings didn't know it. Nobody knew it other than myself, my therapist, and the coach and the athletic trainer. And so we get to the complex. I get up on my walker, have my straight leg braces on. And while the meeting's going on, the door opens and I walk into the meeting. And of course, it was really silent and quiet as I walk into the meeting room. And then I sit down in that meeting. I say, guys, doctors told me that I would never walk again. But here I am. I'm in straight leg braces and a walker, but I'm walking. And if I can do that, you can beat Auburn. And so that was a real emotional time as a team, and emotional and fun, memorable moment in my life. And so we get to the game that Saturday, and I'm sitting in the south end zone at Legion Field. And I had a friend with me, and the game, Alabama jumps out to, I can't remember if it was a 17-0. I think it was a 17-0 lead on Auburn in the first half. And then at some point, Auburn comes back and takes the lead. And they hold the lead until the fourth quarter. And it was one of the loudest times I remember at Legion Field. And I'm sitting in the end zone cheering. I had a big old Alabama flag waving back and forth. And in the fourth quarter, I think it was a couple minutes left in the game, Alabama has the ball to drive the ball to win the game if they do it. And as the guys come out on the field, they spot me in the end zone, and all the guys turn around, pump fist and pointing at me and everything. And I'm cheering really hard and loud and waving them on and whatnot. And they turn around and they start the drive. And they had received the ball on the 26-yard line. They marched down the field. Of course, we know that Freddie Kitchen throws a pass to Dennis Riddle when he goes in and scores a touchdown, which gives us the lead of the game. And so we end up winning the game. And so later on, a week later, I was invited to senior breakfast with the seniors, and I was presented with the game ball for that game. And the neat story about this, and I didn't know this at the time, not only did Coach Stallings announce that he was going to retire after the season, but also that they drove the ball 74 yards to win the game. And Coach Stallings said, I don't know if this means anything, but I think 74 had everything to do with winning that game. And that was my jersey number. And so I thought that was the coolest thing in the world.
That's awesome. I have chill bumps. That is a great story.
Yeah.
Wonderful story. So thanks for sharing that for sure. So to wound us up, so to speak, I have one last question that I would like to ask. So what is the most important lesson that you have learned on your journey? And what advice or words of encouragement would you give to others on their journey to employment?
I think the most important thing for me, and I think it's just who I am really, is I love leaving people with a positive impression of who I am. And I think being kind to people, and just being the best that I can be for people, it's just so important to me. And having a family during that time, I think was a big motivator to really push forward to getting employment, because I had a wife to take care of. Didn't have kids yet, but had a wife to take care of. And oh, by the way, I do have 2 sets of twins. So 3 boys and a girl. So they're 15 and 19. But anyways, it was a big motivating factor for me to work and have a positive impact on people wherever I was. So at Shelton, I just wanted my to be successful. I wanted my students to graduate, and I was happy to play a small role in that, to encourage them to do that. And I wanted to inspire people any way I could, whether it's in the classroom, whether it's getting up and speaking in front of a crowd of people, and it's just to be as positive as I possibly could and encouraging. So I think that's just the biggest thing for me.
Well, I think that you have encouraged a lot of people today with the interview, and we're about to go to questions and answers. So please hang around with us for that. And again, thank you so much for being here with us today and doing this interview for National Disability Employment Awareness Month. And thank you for continuing to teach the students and our future folks.
Oh, absolutely. It's my pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Kareem.
So it is time for Q&As. Do we have Kareem with us today?
I am on the line, but give me just a minute with my video
Okay.
and everything. So give me just a second. I'm kind of finishing up something here. It took a little longer than anticipated, but I am here.
No problem at all. Also, if people are titled Anna Taylor, we have a lot of Anna Taylors today. So if you guys want to change your name, just kind of click on your square and hit those 3 buttons, and you can change your name that way. If you have questions, you can enter them in the chat, or you can go down to the reactions button at the bottom of the screen and raise your hand, and we can call on you to ask your question as well. So, yay, we've got Kareem's name up here, and we have some comments in the chat. So great life journey, and thank you for sharing. Absolutely, very inspirational story. And I agree with that. So, and let's see.
I'm almost ready. All right, almost.
That's okay. As you're working on that, we have, there you are. Hello.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, I'm here.
All
right.
Fantastic. We do have a question that's come in, and the question is, what everyday obstacles did you have to overcome in employment?
Let's see, everyday obstacles. I think initially, for me, because I started out teaching weight training, literally was figuring out how in the world I was going to be able to navigate the weight room and be able to teach people how to lift weights safely and from the wheelchair. And then also at the same time, I started having students that had disabilities that were in wheelchairs, and being able to figure out how to accommodate them so that they can be part of the class as well. So during that time working at Shelton, I did manage to get the school to purchase new equipment, as well as being able to adapt some of the exercises that we did for those students.
Great. So I have another question, and so we know you just went to work at the University of Alabama.
Yes.
So this may be a weird question, but what are your future plans? Where do you see yourself 10 years down the road?
Well, hopefully 10 years from now, I will have completed my doctorate at the university. I plan on working on that in the very near future and achieving my doctorate, something that I've wanted to do for a very, very long time and kind of set it aside when I had kids and everything. So,
Fantastic.
yeah.
Great. So another question. We had some people send us in some questions as well. So we all have mentors in our lives.
Uh-huh.
So
Yeah.
do you have a person in your life that serves as that mentor?
Sure. I think I have a couple of them. One that's pretty obvious is my former coach, Gene Stallings. I think the world of him, and he's been an incredible influence on me, as well as my former boss, Dr. Milady Murphy. She gave me my first job really after I graduated, and I've been working at Shelton State for 22 years. And so she has taught me a lot in that 22 years. And we still talk from time to time and talk about things in life and just things in general. And I learned a lot about the workplace and how to navigate certain things. And it has really helped me tremendously.
Right.
Yeah.
I have met her. She is dynamic for
Oh
sure.
yeah, she's a firecracker.
She is. She really is.
Yeah.
So another question that we have is, what is something you would like employers to know about to help them better understand their employees who use wheelchairs or hiring individuals who use wheelchairs?
Let's see. I don't know that I've ever thought about that specifically, but I think just being good listeners to the employee that may have special needs, and to be able to help them accommodate that. I think is probably the biggest thing. And I was fortunate enough to have Dr. Murphy that really, she was a good listener and understood certain needs. And so, and she was willing to do whatever she could to be able to help me get those things that I needed. So I think probably the biggest thing is just to be a very good listener and understanding the circumstances.
Great, good deal. So another question is, do you have any interesting hobbies?
Let's see. Well, I think they're interesting because it's what I'm really into. But I love fishing. I love playing the harmonica, and I love baking. So those are probably the most interesting things that I do.
Great. And okay, so I'm going to cheat a little bit here. We've had a discussion off camera. What is the favorite thing you like to bake?
I love baking cheesecakes. So yeah, cheesecake is what I really love doing.
Fantastic. Are you going to start a side business maybe?
Well, I kind of have a little bit, just from here and there, and people will call me and ask me to make cheesecakes for them. So I do that for fun. So, yeah.
That is fantastic. That is great. Let me look here and see if we got any hands raised. Not anything yet. So, is there anything else that you would like to maybe share with the audience?
Well, let's see. Well, I had an interesting conversation yesterday with my coworker, and just kind of talking about my journey and to where I am now, and the obstacles that I had to face, and just going from being able-bodied to being disabled was really eye-opening for me, in the sense that obviously it's things that you never think about that you'd have to experience or go through, and it definitely gave me an appreciation for people that had gone through things before I did, to help me understand just being able to adapt and adjust. And I think the biggest thing, just for anybody in life when facing obstacles and things that are negative and things that look like they just aren't going to get better, is that if you be patient, if you are patient and look for the positive side of things, that at some point you'll figure out, you know what, I can adapt, I can adjust, and I can find hope and find joy in life, even in the worst of circumstances. I think you can find joy and happiness because, you know, one, you are alive, and two, there are people that still love you, that are around you and want the best for you. And so if anything, just be happy that you have people around you and the people that love you.
That's great. That is so true. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, attitude and appreciation for what you have really just it makes the difference. It really does.
It sure does. It really does. It makes getting up easier every day.
Absolutely. So let's see. We have another question.
Uh-huh.
Have you ever had a negative experience because of being in a wheelchair?
See, as far as treatment from people, or just
maybe something that was a challenge or was frustrating.
I think probably I think a couple things, and I'm sure people that use wheelchairs and drive experience when you park in a spot and you have the area that's blocked off for the lift or the ramp, and people park in it and you can't get in your van. That's really frustrating, really frustrating. And sometimes it's hard to find whoever did it, and that becomes really irritating. Or or when you go to a place that says it's a handicapped restroom and it's not big enough to accommodate your wheelchair, so that becomes frustrating. So, but you know, you do the best you can, I guess, in some places. And I think it ought to be mandatory that if a place that before they sign off on a wheelchair accessible place, that they ought to literally have somebody in a wheelchair navigate the area to make sure that it accommodates what it does. Because, you know, I don't know who came up with the standards for some of those things, but they don't match always. Yeah,
Exactly. And you know, it seems like the standards are at times the minimum, and
right,
you know, let's think beyond the
right,
minimum. So absolutely.
yeah.
So I've had another question come in, and that is, can you name some of the accommodations you needed in the workplace? This information may be useful because we do have some employers with us today, and may give them an idea of some things to consider.
Sure. I guess there was a few things. One of the earlier things that I needed was for my desk. I had the opportunity for Voc Rehab to come in and do an evaluation for my workspace, and they, instead of a regular desk, they got me adjustable tables that adjusted height wise, so that I can get under the table and use that as a desk rather than the other desk that was at the workplace. And that was great. And then because of the situation I had that I was dealing with, I had some pressure sores and some pressure issues that I had to be able to get some relief. And so with my chair that I had, I was able to recline, and I had to have a special board to put my wireless keyboard on and mouse so that I can recline and use the computer at the same time. So that was great. And then currently where I am now, one of the neat accommodations that I found was just fabulous. That all the doorways going into the different offices had a threshold, and so it was a kind of a nuisance in a sense. There was a bump that was really challenging for my back anyway. Well, they came in and removed the threshold and made it level, so that there was not a bump for me, and so that was great. That really felt good for my back. So those things were really good, and probably the most major thing that I had accommodated for me.
Great, thank you. We had a little technical error here in Birmingham, so had a little power outage there at the building. So apologize, my fireplace went out. Well, that's great. And unfortunately, I cannot see the chat anymore. And so if anybody does have any additional questions, I know we've got some technical assistants in another office, so they can read any questions that have come through. So Anna or Stephanie, do we have anything else?
It doesn't look like we have any new questions. If you guys have anything else, be sure to drop in the chat. We've got 39 people on here, Leslie, so you could unmute yourself and ask Kareem something directly. So feel free to do that as well if you'd like. I had a direct message that said roll tide, Kareem. They wanted me to pass that to you directly. So
That's right.
That's great.
Hi, Kareem. This is Charles Wilkinson. How are you?
I'm doing good, thank you.
Thank you for being with us today. It's been great to hear the advice that you've got to give. I've got one question for you that comes up quite often with some clients that I work with.
Sure.
What is the best way of advice for raising the question or the issue of an accommodation with the employer? Because sometimes individuals who need accommodations, they're not really sure how to go about approaching their employer. They're worried about what the reaction might be. And sometimes the employers, despite best intentions, they don't really know how to respond or, how to.
Right.
But do you have any advice for someone who may need to request an accommodation from the employer? Any advice on how best to proceed? Any advice for employers who are confronted with those requests?
Well, as far as requesting, I think for me, I've just always been pretty straightforward, and I was fortunate enough to be in a situation where my boss was very willing to listen, and so I was able to go to her pretty straightforward. And I think if there is a need for a person to do their job, I think the best thing is just to be straightforward and say, go to their employer and say, hey, I really need some assistance or some accommodation to be able to do my job effectively. And I think any employer should be willing enough to listen and to accommodate that to the best of their ability. And I think probably for an employer, the best thing advice I could give is just be willing to listen, to hear out, what a person needs or accommodation to do their job effectively. And I hope that helps.
Yeah, I think it does. And one thing I've noticed too is that, we can be our own advocate too. And I think Leslie and Anna and the whole team of ADRS, they do such a great job of assisting both employers and consumers. And I think, if you're someone who needs an accommodation, do research, reach out to ADRS on your own, find out what's available to you, be equipped with some of those suggestions when you go to your employer, because I think it can be very helpful in expediting it and informing the employer. And then as an employer, also reach out to ADRS. They're a great resource, and they can provide information and job evaluations and such to help the employer. But I just think that it's such a great resource here that we have that, both consumer and employers can reach out and get great assistance there. So thank you again, Kareem.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you, Charles. Appreciate that. Anybody else have any questions?
Hi, Kareem.
Hi.
My name is Malia Ford, and I'm the ADA officer with the Birmingham Jefferson County Transit Authority.
Yes, ma'am.
And I know that you mentioned about using your own vehicle. And I wanted to know if you'd ever had the occasion to use public transportation.
I have. In fact, I think early on, before I actually had a vehicle that was wheelchair accessible, I utilized public transportation quite a bit. And then in instances where my vehicle was in repair, I utilized public transportation, and that was a tremendous help. Absolutely tremendous help.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's good to hear. Did you use the fixed route bus or paratransit?
It was the paratransit is what I used here in Tuscaloosa. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I also wanted to just make sure that everyone knows that all of our buses, all of our vehicles are equipped for wheelchair transportation and not just the paratransit.
That is fantastic. Fantastic.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. I know that transportation is an issue for many individuals with disabilities. So
Right.
that's a good topic of discussion.
Yes.
Absolutely. So
Yeah.
Anybody else have any other questions before we wrap things up? Okay, so well, Kareem, wow, thank you for your time today and preparation and everything for the Fireside Chat. I would like to thank the sponsors of the Fireside Chat, Alabama Department of Rehabilitation Services, the Governor's Office on Disability, and Disability in Alabama. And as Charles indicated, Alabama has an array of resources and assistance for individuals with disabilities who are seeking employment and for employers who are wanting to hire or retain individuals with disabilities. So please reach out to us and let us know if we can assist. And I'm sure Kareem would not mind if you guys had other questions for him later. Mike could reach out to him or find him. He is everywhere on the internet. So just thank you again so much for being with us today and sharing your journey to employment, your inspiration and motivation for us all, and encouraging us to continue on our journeys as well.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm glad to do it. And for all the War Eagle folks out there, roll tide. I saw the War Eagle.
That's great. That's great. So, all right. Well, thank you. And thank you all for joining us. We hope you'll return for our next 2 Fireside Chats. And just you guys have a great day and a great National Disability Employment Awareness Month. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Bye.